Hi guys, Suzuhiro here. So, Taiyou-con 2016, yeah! It was personally lackluster. I'm not gonna get too deep into the dirt. Wow, words. How can I not do this? I'm not gonna dig too deep into it. There we go, that's the phrasing. But, Taiyou-con and I got a bone to pick. I'm going to admit, for all 3 days, I was a little bit bitter. And the reason that I was a little bit little bit bitter, last year, Taiyou-con 2015, was full of magic and wonder. There were a million things to do, and they were all relevant, and they were all interesting. If I didn't know the fandom, I could hop right into it and be completely fine, because those panels showed me how to do it. This year was different. Panels were a little bit ridiculous, because one thing that a con-goer lives off of is the guide. Stuff that you can do, all of the panels, descriptions of the panels, even the guests, like their signings and things like that. This is what people during a con need. And it was wrong. Literally, I went to the programming guides for the days, and the programming for the guides was different than the programming on the website. I had a hell of a time trying to find panels that I wanted to go to, because either A, they weren't on the spread, or two, they were on the spread, but they weren't supposed to be on the spread. For example, there was a Tales of panel that I wanted to go to, because Tales of Fangirl, but it wasn't on the spreadsheet. It was actually, now that I look at it, why is it on this one? Oh, they updated it. I got this on the third day. On the first day, it wasn't even there. All of the time slots were completely different, and it wasn't even there. I was going through the descriptions, because the first spread looked kind of weird to me, like, meh, there's really nothing to do. So I started looking through the descriptions, and I found Tales of Historia. That was kind of dumb. The panels themselves, they were so... Mind you, again, I only went to a couple of them. But the rooms that I went into, or the panel rooms that I looked in when I was passing, maybe 1 or 2 rows of people in any given panel. Even in the large ones, the ones that had like 15 different monitors, and there were sound people, and there were altering cameras, even those weren't very full. And that's kind of saying something. When you hire these huge guests to do something, and then they don't get as much attention as they deserve. They got attention in the vendor hall. There were lines for their signatures, but from what I saw, it wasn't really that full. The only panel rooms that I saw that were full to the brim were the Team Rocket panels. There was cosplay chess, which is always full, but even that, they don't know how to allocate how much popularity and space things have. Team Rocket, I am kind of bragging, but this is also a legitimate fact. Team Rocket panels always get a ton of people, like a whole bunch of them. We had a room last year at Taiyou-con, well, the group did, I wasn't part of them at that point. Team Rocket AZ had a large ballroom for their panel last year, and it was still full. This year, they got a room about the size of my apartment. They kept having to turn people away because it was so full. With the guests, they gave them the huge rooms, which is completely understandable. When you have a large guest, when you have a guest from overseas, definitely treat them like a king or a queen. But you need to understand what is local and what is popular to that locality. And Team Rocket is popular. I'm going to admit Tales of isn't that popular. It got a small room. I don't blame them. It felt very badly allocated. On the topic of panels, with the panels, they did feel a little bit strangely allocated, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like they're bringing in a whole bunch of new types of panels. There was some stuff I saw on the roster that was definitely something I hadn't seen before. I'm not going to say they're not bringing in new things and new material, but there are a lot of things that I see a lot of. I go to a whole bunch of Arizona cons, guys. I've been going to them for about, ever since I was 16, so 8 years. I've been going to Arizona cons for 8 years. I've outlived some of those cons, and even then, there have been things that I just keep seeing. Maybe it's because it's popular. I don't know. I know Team Rocket's popular. That's why we keep getting panels. Fair. There are some things that I keep seeing that I'm kind of surprised just haven't died yet. The in-character question panels, specifically. So, ask a nation, Hitalia. Ask Iwatobi Free Swim Club. Ask your mom. I don't know. Sorry if I may rant about Hitalia. Love the show. Fans are a little bit iffy. Just to implant the amount of repetitive natures I see, there were 4 Hitalia panels. Just Hitalia. Regardless of what it was all Hitalia. None of them were about the history of Hitalia. None of them were about the history of Hitalia. As far as I'm aware, none of them were about the characters. It was just Hitalia. Awesome segue into about being prepared. Listen to Scar, guys. Listen to Scar. He is the best Disney villain for a reason. But, being prepared. So, the con staff. Well, not the con staff. The con venue itself. Last year it was completely fine. But at the same time, I have a feeling that they just stopped caring this year, because there were a lot of panels that didn't have working tech, or if they did have working tech, it was off-kilter and kind of awkward looking. In the Tales of Historia panel, they actually had a full projector. This is screen for the projector, but they had a physical projector as well. Their stuff worked. They didn't have a microphone, small room, but usually there's a microphone in each room. Kind of brings into question, but again, it's a small room, not going to question it too much. But then it comes to the bigger panels, like the theater. There was someone trying to run a character design panel in the theater. They were supposed to have a projector and mics and things like that. They had the mics, they had the projector, but 10 minutes in, the projector stopped working. So everybody just started drawing and being with each other instead, which, drawing and being with each other is always fun. Being with your friends and doing something you love is fantastic, but usually there's things called working machines, not ones that break down every 10 seconds. And it's always the fans that try to make it work. It's never the people who own the venue. It's always the people actually trying to absorb the content that are trying to fix it. Because we actually love what we're going to this con for. You're just kind of showing us, look at all these nerds. Who cares? Who cares about these nerds trying to enjoy something and learn to do something creative? That's the message that the venue comes across as when they don't put enough preparedness into their rooms and into the place that they are renting out for people to enjoy a medium. That shit wouldn't fly if it were a big corporation that's all about business. But when people are trying to do something they love, you just kind of shrug your shoulders and turn a blind eye to the state of your functioning property. That's not really considerate, nor is it fair to anyone attending your venue. We're not responsible for fixing your stuff. That's not our job, that's your job. You should be doing that. That's not our problem. But we take it upon ourselves because we love everything so much. I've been guilty of doing this. I saw a whole bunch of people this weekend trying to do it. We want to absorb what we love, and you're not letting us. That's pretty much what it comes down to. The vendor hall. The vendor hall had a lot of cool stuff. The vendor hall had a lot of cool people. The vendor hall had a lot more stuff than last year. It even had concessions, which, if you're into paying $5 for a hot dog and $7 for a soft drink, then that's pretty cool. That's the place for you to go. But I don't know, when you decide that original artists and people selling their products need to be in a contained area, maybe get a bigger room as opposed to squishing everybody together to try to save space. Because when I was walking through Artist Alley, which, for those of you not familiar with cons, the front of a vendor hall, which is where you buy stuff relating to the convention you're going to, the front is usually stuff from existing stores and websites and things like that. J-List very often has a booth over at PCC, Phoenix Comic Con. So the front is generally reserved for those businessmen, and the back is usually reserved for those independent business people, comic book artists, and jewelry designers, and people who make things with their own hands as opposed to having some kid and trying to do it. They got shafted because they had maybe this much room for aisles. So they had to deal with people trying to look at their stuff, but having people feel rushed because there were people also trying to walk through those aisles. It was very unfair to the people who are vendors and artists and creators in that room. They didn't get the exposure that they deserved because you wanted to skimp out on the room and make sure there was enough room for idols to sign pictures and take pictures with people. You wanted to make sure there was enough room for that instead of getting a different room for that to happen in. I'm going to be getting on con staff, and I've got another thing about the vendor hall when it comes to con staff, but the vendor hall it didn't get bigger. Like, it's not a TARDIS. It can't get bigger on the inside and then stay the exact same amount on the outside. No, you need to work with this stuff. You need, at the very least, if you're going to be having more people and having them sew more stuff, but you don't want to get another room, at least properly floor plan. It was almost the exact same floor plan as last year, except with more artists in the back. That's really not fair. It really isn't. Let's talk about the staff. I mean, what staff? Oh, wait, do you mean the staff that were just sitting at the place where you sell the tickets? Because that's the only time I ever saw them. I didn't see them checking on panels, whether it be to make sure that the panel room was clean, or to make sure that a panel was ending on time, or to make sure that people knew exactly where the panel room they were looking for was. I saw none of that. Were they the people taking care of the people in the vendor hall? You know, bringing them snacks, because those guys don't get a break. They don't get to go places because they have to watch their booths. So were they, you know, taking care of them, bringing them water, bringing them snacks, making sure there was nothing that they needed? Oh, do you need another chair? Oh, is there anything that you need me to do? You need me to find somebody to replace you to take over your booth so you can take a break? Didn't see them there. Were they the people enforcing the rules? Oh, or maybe, you know, making sure that everybody's weapons were peace bonded and not just peace bonded from a different convention, that they were actually peace bonded from this convention, and, you know, making sure everyone's safe and not dragging around real weapons, and making sure that there aren't people with real guns or real knives or anything just hurting people, or making sure that the people around the con who do have peace bonds don't mess with other people and hurt each other with the props that got peace bonded? No, there was no structure to them at all. And I was wandering around the con the entire time. I was participating in panels. One of our panels got to go over by almost half an hour until the other people showed up to set up their panel, because there wasn't somebody kicking us out because our time was over, and making sure that the panel room was set up correctly. And there wasn't anyone bringing people water, even though there was a whole bunch of water in the hallway for the other guests. There was nothing for the vendor hall people. No, they just sat around. And I'm not saying they're bad people for doing that. I'm not. The ones that I dealt with were actually fairly nice. But can you get off your ass and help someone? The only ones that I saw doing any work at any point during the con were the volunteers. The volunteers are golden. They were so nice. They were helping people out. They were doing their rounds. I never saw one of them sitting on their asses doing nothing. They were always jetting from one place to another. They had microphones in their ears and they were getting stuff done. Not the con staff. Con staff is treating volunteers that like they're their gophers. Get your head out of your asses, con staff. But on a different note, there was at least one or two things that were positive about the con. The people were fantastic. All of the fans that I've met, and all of the cosplayers, and all of the people who ran the panels, they were all lovely individuals. Everyone who ran a booth, everyone that was selling something, they were all open and happy and wonderful people. Everyone I passed by in the hall, they got excited. When they came out of something that they liked, they were chattering about it. That was a good part of the con. The cosplay, which again relates to the people, was a fantastic part of the con. That's it. The tickets were overpriced. They've gone up by $10 since last year. But that's really it. It was the people. The con ended up degrading to people sitting around the halls and talking to each other, because that was what was interesting. There was an MMA fight going on next door during the con. There were people lined up against the fence watching that, as opposed to being at the con. The people were the only good thing about this con. Aside from, again, some of the panels. I'm really disappointed. I'm really disappointed. You could have done better, and you didn't. But that's my review. I'm going to be putting up a video where I interviewed a couple of people from the con, gave them their thoughts. They were a lot happier than I were, but I'm also trying to take this from a critical standpoint as opposed to just someone going to the con, so it's probably that. But yeah, it sucks that I have to end this on a bad note. Aside from the photographers were fantastic. And, you know, Team Rocket rules. It's Susie Girl, signing out.